Why is it a lie to say democracy is a necessary alternative to totalitarianism?
Well, again, it's a lie because that's implying that there are only two forms of government, what we call democracy and totalitarianism. And notice that modern totalitarianism calls itself democracy. Hitler, Stalin, Mao, all these people said they had perfected democracy, that they were more democratic, better Democrats than the Western regimes. Think about that. And again, we're a democracy, are we? Ruled by the majority. So did the majority of Californians want there to be a third gender? Did the majority of Americans support same-sex marriage? The majority of the Irish did because they voted it in, 2/3. So we know they're good with it. But what about the Americans? No. Notice, I mean, in the state of California anyway, which I keep referring to because like I live here and stuff, whenever a proposition passes that the dominant circles don't like, they always kill it in the courts. Where's the democracy in that? No. That's, again, you're presuming that democracy is really all there is, and that the only alternative is totalitarianism. And that's like saying if I don't eat beef, I must be a vegetarian.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
Oh, so you're a vegan? No, I just prefer lamb, venison, and pork. Oh, I get it. So no meat products, no dairy. No, I told you, beef.
Well, what are the alternatives to democracy and totalitarianism?
Sanity.
Sanity?
Sanity. No, because the truth of the truth is, what we call totalitarianism, what we call democracy, are really twin children, if they're not a two-headed Siamese thing, of the revolution of the past 500 years. I mean, look at it this way, ladies and gentlemen. We just celebrated Martin Luther tacking up his feces on the door in Wittenberg. Before his time, people used to say that society had three major elements: the altar, the throne, and the hearth or the cottage. What were these? Well, the church, the king, the people. They had another way of saying it, which was the priest blesses society, the knight defends it, the peasant feeds it. They had all sorts of ways of saying the same thing. Well, let us let us love our occupations, bless the squire and his relations, live upon our daily rations, and always know our proper stations. But at any rate, the first major revolution we had was started at the time of Martin Luther. Now, mind you, I don't want you to think that I think that it all was peace and perfection before that. It wasn't. But people agreed on the basics, that is, people in Western Christendom. And by that I mean what's now orthodoxy as well, because contrary to what both sides like to say, in this area, Catholicism and Orthodoxy were identical. The truth is that despite the horrible disputes between, well, East and West, Guelph and Ghibelline, the Wars of the Roses, all these terrible, terrible things went on. Nevertheless, everyone agreed upon the basics. Where they differed was the specifics, and of course were very often motivated by greed and jealousy, being human beings. But they all agreed on very basic principles. With Martin Luther came the first revolution against the altar. And the altar was broken, the unity of the altar was broken. And when I say this, what do I mean? Well, even the countries that stayed Catholic chose to stay Catholic. You see, it was no longer simply the way it was.
Yeah.
They had made a conscious choice that they would remain this way. And that was a huge thing. But once it was established that lay hands could lay hands on steel to take that which was sacred, Well, then the way was opened for the Second Revolution, which arguably began in England in the 1640s, but certainly in France in 1789, and that was the revolution against the throne. And then again, the same thing happened. Sure, you had countries that decided to stay monarchies, but they decided to stay. It wasn't simply the order of things.
Right.
And that decision can be changed. And then you had the third and last revolution, which has been going on since the 20th century. And that is the revolution against home and family, against the mere normality of everyday life. I don't want to be a boy. I want to be a girl. I don't want to be a human. I want to be a puppy. You know, it gets further and further down. So when you say the only alternative, no, there are twin symptoms. You know, when you see someone, you've got two people with rashes caused by the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Notice those rashes never look identical. They vary from person to person. But believe you me, what we call totalitarianism and what we call democracy really have a lot more in common than they have apart. And this becomes ever more apparent as what we call democracy ages and becomes nastier.
Well, see, just playing devil's advocate, you know, totalitarians, they're mean. They treat their people cruelly. Our government is nice. At least...
to a degree.
To a degree.
Nicer.
Nicer.
Nicer. How long that will last is anyone's guess. And you know, you've already got things like the property forfeiture of criminals who haven't even been accused of anything. Drug lords and so on.
Wow.
You know, who's to say what that's going to be used for in the future?
Well, that reminds me of the quote that I posted on you maybe last week or so. He says, you know, I took it from Puritan's Empire, where you say, we've been accustomed to so that as long as the government is quote-unquote nice, we will give it all the power it wants.
Yeah.
Unlimited power. As long as it's nice.
As long as it's nice. But see, the problem is we'll tolerate from it horrible things, which is we've got on earlier.
No.
And now, as I say, they're getting a little less nice. I don't know what would have happened if Mrs. Clinton had been elected. But I know that her ideological soul sister, our own Senator Barbara Boxer Shorts, Boxer, she, the other ones are married then. Mm-hmm. Anyway, no, Barbara Boxer declared repeatedly, most recently, that no Catholic who believes with his church teachers should be allowed to be a judge. So what is she saying? What is that mouth, that creature that represents us in D.C., our senatrix? What is her ladyship telling us? That you and me ought never to be judges. Of course, given what the judiciary has become, maybe it's a compliment. I don't know. She might be saying we should never be key holders in a bordello. But you get what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
And I suspect that unless there is radical change in the country, once Mr. Trump is gone, and things go back to what passed for normal for the abnormal, I suspect it will get very strange. And then you will see, I mean, it was already getting strange under Mr. Obama. I remember his executive order taking away free lunches from schools that would not provide, would not allow boys who thought they were girls to go into girls' locker rooms and girls' rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that executive order passed without anybody caring. You know, this is the thing that gets me. We are run by people, and we are people for whom this isn't a problem.
Yeah.
So maybe the problem is not our stars or even our masters. Maybe the problem is a lot closer to hand.
Yeah, it's us.
Well, you know, we like what we get. We've been fed on a steady diet of offal, and we seem to enjoy it. So that's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch upon this, something we were talking about before the show, which is how to answer people who say, all we need are the right politicians, the strong politicians. We're looking for, messianic type figures. And you had a brilliant retort.
We've had them.
We've had them.
We've had them. I mean, we had Reagan, who was great. I love the man. I met him 3 times.
Yeah.
We had JFK, we had FDR. Happy days are here again.
Yeah.
But see...
And we're still here.
We're
still here.
We're here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to get my brother or me into tears, especially my brother, come with us to the Reagan Library. Squirt, squirt.
Mm.
I mean, we were young. It seemed like Mr. Reagan was going to turn back the wave of insanity. It was morning in America. It was great. He was the first man I ever voted for president. I was 18 years old, and I went down to the polling place in beautiful Roswell, New Mexico, where I was going to college, and I voted for him in the New Mexico Republican primary. There were big things all over the town of Roswell, Reagan country and all that. Oh, heady days, heady days. And that's why, a lot of my young friends out there, we're all gung-ho for Mr. Trump. And some of you got a little bit miffed at me that I wasn't very excited. Well, believe me, gentlemen, it wasn't out of any dislike of Mr. Trump. It's just that I've been there before, you see. And not just with Reagan. I mean, we've had all sorts of other candidates on less exalted spots. If we only get so-and-so as senator, so-and-so as congressman, so-and-so as governor, everything will be great. Well, no. I mean, we had, what's his name, Fanning in Louisiana, who was great. He was anti-abortion and pro-gun control. The joke about that campaign was that their motto was "Arm the unborn for self-defense."
Wow, that's good.
But what happened? The answer was nothing. I mean, Louisiana's as screwed up as the rest of us in this area, because these things are not going to be fixed through the ballot box. You see? Again, even if you're like Jimmy Stewart in the Cheyenne Social Club, and you're the nicest possible man alive, if you inherit a bordello, it's a bordello. And I keep using that particularly odious simile to hit home the fact that we have become just that inured to our sins. Lest you wonder why I keep bringing it up. It's not that I frequent them. Well, that's not entirely true. I do vote every election. I'm sorry, go ahead.